Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Amanda Law, and I'm the Event Marketing Manager here at Cadmium. About today's session, so if you're like me, I'm going to guess you find managing speakers a little challenging sometimes, probably most of the time. With shifting content, tight deadlines, and last-minute changes, it can get chaotic fast, sometimes overnight. Ask me how I know. But if you're not, you're in the right place. Today's session will share practical strategies and real-world examples to help you streamline communication, simplify workflows, and deliver a smoother experience for both your speakers and attendees. I'm thrilled to introduce our panel of experts, each of whom provides a unique perspective and hands-on experience wrangling speakers. First, I would like to welcome Becky Anthony, Associate Director of Programs and Meetings at the Entomological Society of America. Also joining us today is Cadmium partner James Rutt, the Chief Information Officer at Cogent Global Solutions. And rounding out our panel is Cadmium's own Manager of Multimedia Productions, Ian DeLacy. Please join me in giving them a warm welcome, and I'll hand it over to you, Ian.
Well, thank you very much, Amanda, and I greatly appreciate the introductions. I'm excited that all of you have joined us here today for this expert panel that we've gathered to talk about the Speaker Ready system here at Cadmium. Today, we're going to cover about 3 different sections: why to use the Speaker Ready system and what benefits to be gained from it. Then we'll talk about specific speaker management tools within Cadmium, and then real-world takeaways and examples from the expert panelists. Then we'll have a Q&A. This webinar is not scripted. We're going to keep it loose and conversational here today. And we can shift into any direction that you guys want us to go in. So please submit your questions. Let us know what you guys want to know, and we will definitely answer those here today. So with that, I want to do a couple icebreaker questions for my speakers. Becky, could you tell us about the scope of your meeting and what you do at NSOC with your presenters, how many presenters and things of that nature?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Happy to. Hi, everybody. So as Amanda mentioned, I'm the Associate Director of Programs and Meetings at the Entomological Society of America. And in this role, I manage the entire scientific program for our annual meeting. We have approximately 3,000 presentations over the course of 4 days, just over half of which are oral presentations. So over those 4 days, we are running just over 30 concurrent breakouts with sessions, with presentations the sessions have anywhere from 6 to 7 presentations up to 20. So that's it's a lot of concurrent sessions. It's a lot of presenters. So it's really essential for us that we have a speaker ready software that's both easy to facilitate for our speakers to upload all of their presentations, because everybody waits to the last minute to do that. But then also the in-room experience for our volunteer moderators, making sure that's easy, user-friendly, and everything. That's really where this speaker-ready software from Cadmium really shines, in my opinion.
Well, thank you, Becky. And James, why don't you tell us about your background? And you're with Cogent, and you're now delivering this Speaker Ready product to your clients. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks, Ian, and thanks everybody for joining today. Yeah, so I've been in the events industry since about 2007, and I've worn a lot of different hats. My background is primarily in information technology. I'm now the Chief Information Officer for Cogent. Worked in the events industry, I've mentioned, since 2007. Project managed and working in IT and all the different aspects of events. And when we started Cogent back in 2018, I knew I was going to need a good solution for presentation management. And I had previous dealings with Cadmium and knew that they were offering some type of a solution. And so we began that partnership back then. And of course, those were, the older days when we used full-blown servers and things were a little bit different, but we've obviously moved on into the new SRS solution, which has been great. And I had existing customers, obviously, that needed presentation management. And so we've been able to transition all of those. Some of those customers being Cadmium customers already. It was very simple for them to already working within the harvester and understanding what needs to be done. Some of those customers did not have that Cadmium relationship, but the good news was, because of the relationship that Cogent already had and the partnership that we had already established, I was able to bring them over and help them out with their setup through the harvester, and then still manage their speaker management solution as they needed. And so it was a big success, and it's been a great success having the partnership that we've been able to form and work together providing this solution to our clients and to any client out there that needs a presentation management solution.
Yeah, thank you, James. And your partnership has been great. I want to say you're doing just underneath 20 of these now a year, which is pretty impressive. So you definitely know what you're talking about. With that, Becky, can you kind of go back in time a little bit? I know you've used the old, Hermes system and now the Speaker Ready system, but just kind of talk about what pain points did you overcome by implementing the Speaker Ready system? Like, why do this?
Sure. So obviously we have a lot of presentations that take place in our meeting, and Hermes really did serve its purpose for that moment in time. As James had mentioned, it used to have that big old server that you had to ship to meetings. You're worried, is it going to arrive? Whatever. We ended up getting caught up in a situation just post-COVID where we got a server that was never updated and then just didn't work on site. So we were literally, like, for our 30+ breakouts, putting things on flash drives, running them to meetings. Our entire AV team, like our entire staff, is like frantic. Our volunteers are crazy. And so, that was a huge pain point for us that particular year, though I will say that was a one-off that had never happened before or since, thankfully. But the struggle that we found with that old software is that it was really a snapshot in time from 2 weeks before the meeting started. And so for a program as big as ours, we're constantly shifting. Things are changing right up until we travel to the meeting. And so having a snapshot in time from 2 weeks out, by the time we were on site, everything was already out of date, or not everything, but enough of our program was already out of date that it really wasn't, it just created some extra pain points that weren't necessary. Where with this new Speaker Ready system, everything is in real time. It's updating as I update pieces in our harvester. It's updating in the session rooms as people are uploading. It's a current snapshot in time, which is way more effective for us, especially with all the, like I said, the last minute changes that are taking place.
Well, that's great. What kind of feedback have you received from your speakers and moderators about the system? Last year was the first, you were one of the early adopters for it. And I know we had some concerns leading up to it and things, but can you talk about, maybe a little bit about those concerns that we had, and then kind of how the impact was afterwards?
Sure. So I will be honest that I wasn't really worried about the upload process for the speakers themselves. Like I felt confident that was going to be a smooth process. You all walked me through in advance what that was going to look like, which I really appreciated, because it's no small thing to be switching software and be among the first users of a new software. But where I was really nervous, and we had lots of conversations, was what that session room launcher was going to be, what that experience was going to be for our moderators. So it's really important for our particular session that everything runs according to exactly how it is scheduled in our online program and mobile app. So if we have sessions that have new presentations taking place every 10 minutes, so for 2 hours, some are as long as 4 hours, every 10 minutes it's a different speaker. And so I was worried that our moderators, one, they're also just general attendees and speakers, that they wouldn't feel comfortable using new software, but that also, because the session room launcher is updating as presentations are being added, that they would blow through the timing in our schedule. And, I found that actually our moderators were totally fine with it. I do a training, which we'll chat about in a little bit. I do a training with my moderators on site. So I just gave them a heads up, like, hey, this is going to be a thing. You need to make sure you're checking the online program so you stay on time. But our moderators came back with just really great feedback. It was really easy to use. They felt comfortable using it. They felt confident using it. And that was really great for me to know that was so user-friendly, that just general attendees who get on-site training were up and running and feeling good about their sessions.
Well, excellent. And why don't we go ahead and touch on that moderator training, because I did have it under the questions I wanted to ask you, but you have a daily training with all your moderators that you go through and cover different topics and let them know, what the day is going to look like and things like that. I think that's so helpful. I only see a couple of my clients do that with the moderators. So can you explain what value you see out of it and what you covered during that meeting?
Sure. So I've got probably about 500 or 600 session moderators because we have multiple moderators per every session. So I just do a 30-minute training in the mornings before sessions get started that everyone is required to attend. And I do some general housekeeping, just so some basics like, show up early, introduce yourself, the basic pieces, but then I get into a technical demonstration and actually show them how to navigate the software in the room. And I show them what happens when you click on a presentation, like how the slides come up. I click through to the end and show them what happens when you get to the end of a presentation, what happens if you close out when you didn't mean to, just so that way they feel like they can't mess anything up because they can't, because the system really is that easy and that straightforward. And I have found that really goes a long way to ensuring that our sessions go smoothly, and both our moderators, our speakers, and our attendees just have a seamless experience.
Thank you for that. So James, your perspective is a little bit different being an AV provider. Normally we have meetings if we're on site executing this with the AV provider, just to kind of go over all the details, what to do if somebody runs in with a thumb drive or all those different scenarios that we come across daily. Can you kind of describe that situation and working with them and kind of how you approach this, from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a system that allows for the people like Becky, to focus on their event. The last thing Becky and anyone else in her role needs to be worrying about is, are their presenters being taken care of? Are they going to be able to do what they need to do in regards to presenting? Because we all know they can be difficult at times and hard to herd at times. And so this system allows for, Cogent, one of the things that we want to strive for is great customer service. And this system is a great extension of us being able to provide great customer service. A presenter, can come into that room and we have full confidence that we're going to be able to assist them, and we can immediately start to convey that confidence to them by showing them, we have your session. We are ready for you to upload that file, take it in, get it into the system. And then, beyond that, even taking them over and giving them a specific example of what they're going to be doing in their room. We set up a demo station in the speaker ready room that allows them to see exactly what they're going to be experiencing when they approach the podium. And so, I think that the real plus for this is the ahead of the show is when all of the work is being done, hopefully by Becky and her team and anyone else that's, involved with the setup of this. And once we get on site, we take that over. We are managing the presenters and we're making certain that their experience is good, which obviously, would then lead to a great experience by the folks in the room, because everything is organized, everything is ready, and everything is set to go. So there's no concerns about whether, you're going to be able to present or not.
Excellent. Yeah, I do have to give props to our engineering team, because when we were designing this, literally, we talked about the amount of clicks it would take for somebody to submit their presentation and down to that minute level, just to make sure that it was so easy to use. And kind of my feedback that I've seen on site this year from presenters are, that's it. Like this is so easy, and they see everything. So kudos to the engineering team for doing a great job. It's been very successful this year. So now I kind of want to delve into some of the tools and kind of get a little more, into the tools here. James, you work intimately with the old system and kind of the new system. And I know we kind of spoke very high level about some of those differences and changes, but can you talk about kind of, how it's easier for you to execute on site? That changes happen automatically because it always stays synced with cloud and things of that nature that allow you to better do your job.
Yeah, Becky mentioned it earlier. The big thing, is the days of the big box server are gone. And that's a great thing. This system can operate basically from a laptop. And when I say a laptop, I don't mean it needs to be a laptop server or anything of that nature. It could be a pretty traditional laptop that we would put in every one of our breakout rooms for presentation use. That same exact laptop can be used to run this system, which is big, excellent. No more concerns with shipping, no more concerns with the server going down. And not to mention the fact that in this case, from a perspective of understanding that if something did go wrong, you're going to have another laptop in the room that's going to be available that you could literally throw in line. If that particular laptop you had designated as your server goes down, again, no big concern. You're going to be right back going where you are. You're not going to be running around with thumb drives, as Becky mentioned earlier, which which is everybody's worst nightmare. So, you know, that's a big big help. And then again, as I mentioned before, you know, just in the room, the ease of use. You said it a minute ago, Ian, with the syncing instantaneously. You know, the one thing that presenters are always amazed by, they come into the room and they say, "Hey, I present in 5 minutes. Is this file going to be there in time?" And I said, you know, I always say that file will be there as soon as you hit save, basically. And there's no way you could be right next door to the speaker ready room presenting, and you're not going to beat the file over to that room, which is a big plus. And then, of course, as we all know, in the system, the files that are then saved from the presenters, those newest versions, latest, greatest versions, are then synced up back to the cloud into Harvester. And we also have that available. You know, the days of having to concern yourself with uploading all the presentations to a location or saving them to a hard drive and giving over to the customer, that's all been alleviated as well, because the latest, greatest version is going to be available in the cloud and within a few minutes, actually, of it being saved in the room. We all know that presenters are very, very last minute. You know, Becky said, you know, she wasn't overly concerned with the upload in advance. And, you know, these days, yeah, that's still available. People do upload in advance, but very, very few presenters are going to upload that file, you know, even a day ahead and not want to touch it one more time. And we're confident in that. We welcome them to come back to the ready room and make those last minute adjustments, save that file, and then make sure, and it's out to the room and it's ready to go. So those, you know, those are big parts of why this system is such a great success.
Yeah, I think I'd tell them we can get the file there before you can walk there, which obviously it's there almost instantaneously, but it kind of as a way of telling them you need to hurry up and get to the room started. Yeah. Well, Becky, you have a very small team that you pull all this off of, and it's amazing that you guys can even do it with the small team that you have. What Cadmium tools specifically save you and your staff time and effort in the speaker harvester side of things when preparing all this?
Sure. Yeah. So we use most of Cadmium's event tech suite for our meeting, including Harvester. We do all of our scheduling. As I mentioned, we have like 3,000 presenters. So all of that scheduling is done in Harvester and Logistics. So that way we're not trying to bring in stuff from other platforms. It's all just living in the Cadmium space. But we use the communication module in particular quite a bit. To communicate, because if we have presentations that are taking place every 10 minutes, we have to give very detailed information to our presenters, not just the day and time of the session, but also specifically when they're presenting, what, if they're a oral presenter versus a poster presenter, what all of their responsibilities are in those expectations, moderators, all of those pieces. So we use the communication module extensively because we can pull all of that information from those presentation records in the Harvester to email them, and knowing that it's accurate, knowing that there's a whole lot less room for like human error. Like if I'm trying to download something and send a mail merge, ooh, no, thank you. So we use the communication module quite a bit. That does really save us time. And we also use, we use a lot of tasks to help collect information or verify information for our presenters, so they can update their abstracts, they can update their profile if they've changed institutions without having to ask our team to do it. We do collect slides, so we do open that in advance. It's not a huge adoption rate, but it does help with the on-site experience. So that's another tool that we use to help alleviate some of the burden from our team.
Excellent. What reporting, Becky, do you find helpful in Cadmium to let you, because when you mentioned the communication module, I know you can tell if they even read your emails, if they looked at it, and other things and other information that comes from Cadmium. As you're doing this planning, you can, single out those people that haven't responded or haven't logged into the system before. How do you use that reporting not only for your team to reach out to those people that don't necessarily follow directions, and also reporting that lets you know that, hey, you're on track with what you want to accomplish?
Yeah, so there's actually a really great, in the communication module, you have the ability to send messaging specifically to people who have incomplete tasks. So if I've assigned 12 tasks and people haven't done half of them, or they haven't even logged in, I have the ability to see that and to ping them. and to ping them multiple times if I need to with increasingly strongly worded language, like please check your stuff. Because, you know, everybody reads every email I send. Never. So, I mean, sorry, I got myself distracted on that particular piece. I was like, I'm working on mapping out communications here in a little bit. But for the reporting, one of the pieces that I really liked that your Speaker Ready system does is that I can get a report, which you all were kind enough to provide me last year, that shows me all of the upload data across our meeting. And so we use volunteers to staff our upload room. In addition to, we bring 2 Cadmium staff members on site to handle some of the things that like are higher level that student volunteers can't handle. But it helps us determine staffing because I know what my high volume times are versus my slower volume times are. It helps me identify who are the speakers who just never showed and didn't tell us they weren't coming. It helped me actually last year identify a couple speakers who showed up but never registered. And so for our meeting, we do require all of our presenters to register and pay us a fee to present. So I was able to shake down a few people for money afterwards because I was like, hey, I see that you uploaded and you talked. So all of that is really helpful to my team in not only just reconciling the meeting, you know, immediate post-meeting pieces, but then also as we plan for the next year.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and give you another opportunity to talk about your volunteer thing, because it's something when I first went on your show last year, I thought it sounded like chaos, to be honest with you. But I've actually started suggesting it to other clients. Can you describe kind of how you do your all volunteer Speaker Ready room staff?
Yeah, so we have a student and early career professional volunteer program through our annual meeting, and I won't bore you with the details of how those individuals are selected, but basically our student and early career professional volunteers, if they serve volunteer with us on site at the meeting for a minimum of 6 hours, they get a partial reimbursement of their registration fees. And for people in those career categories, that's no small thing. They're all living on tight budgets. So we use student volunteers to greet people as they're coming in. Again, just over 1,500 people are coming through our speaker, our upload room on site. So it's they are welcoming people as they come in, helping get them set up at a laptop to upload their presentation, walking them through the steps. And they really, I was like, they're actually really wonderful. They are so good. They really help supplement what the rest of our paid staff and our AV and Cadmium partners, they really help supplement what we're doing, so that way we can focus on the bigger picture items and they can handle just like the individual smaller pieces.
And yeah, you do a great job at selecting, because they are very enthusiastic about helping when they come in, and it actually works out really well. And I think it's exciting for them to be a part of it as well, and get to see kind of this other piece of the puzzle that not many people really understand until you are a speaker or presenter. James, I wanted to ask you a question. You use the harvester a little differently for these clients that are not Cadmium clients. Can you talk a little bit about how you use that process and your import spreadsheet to get the information in there and download from the client that makes it easier for you to get started with this?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a concern initially, for someone that didn't work in the harvester. How difficult was it going to be for me or my team to manage that scenario? Because if we've got a customer like Becky that knows the ins and outs of it, it's really a scenario for us where we show up on site and we make it happen. But with this scenario you're describing, Ian, we because of this system, the way that it's set up to work, it is still simple. There's a template spreadsheet that we send out, and it's very easy to follow, very easy to read and understand. That template spreadsheet, in most cases, everyone has a database. Almost everyone should or would have a database of presenters, the times they speak, the rooms they're in, all the pertinent information that you would need to build a system. And that data, it gets populated with their database information. And then we upload that into the harvester ourselves. And, if there are any conflicts, if there's any issues with it, we can go back to the customer and ask for those, corrections and make them. But that allows for us to have a fully functional system, even as if we had a customer that was already using the harvester. We also have, as a good example of another customer of mine, they don't use the harvester. And not only do they not use the harvester, they have their own, LMS that they utilize, that they have their presenters uploading presentations to, and they want to continue to work within that system. So in their case, I'm doing what I've already kind of described. I'm taking that data dump of their information, putting it into the harvester. And then what's happening after that is I'm gaining access to their LMS on site, typically, because I want to get the latest and greatest information. I'm downloading those presentations, and then I'm actually uploading. I can set up a few folks in the room. Doesn't take us that long. We upload the files that have come in. And then the good news is when the presenters come into the room, they do see the file that they uploaded, even though it wasn't directly to the harvester, it was to a completely different system. And from there, they either adjust and make changes to the file that was uploaded, or they give us a brand new file. So again, with the use of that template spreadsheet in their database, it makes it very easy for us to get the information into Harvester. I have had a few customers that, didn't use Harvester, didn't want to use Harvester, but after understanding how simple it was, I can still give them access if it was desired for them to log in and make changes of their own if needed. But again, because of that process that we have in place, it does make it very simple.
Yeah, you definitely, I've seen kind of the care and concern you give clients in helping them when they're not, an experienced Cadmium user, and I'm sure they greatly appreciate that. I guess next I want to get into kind of a little more just rapid fire, but before I do, I see a question that came up for Becky. How many stations do you have in your speaker ready room?
We run like 12 or 13 stations. So I was like, I create little sheets of paper with big numbers on them, so that way they're easily identifiable, because that room can get a little bit crazy with that many stations.
And I can't really recall last year, but I know it was in the hundreds we would collect in an hour.
Yes.
That process has changed a little bit, because before, with the old system, we had to download a mobile app and then have the app configured to look up the speaker database. Now we've changed how that works, and it's really easy to get anybody access to be able to log somebody into the workstation. And I think that has helped the limited buttons that they have to click to upload a presentation,
Yes.
as well as, the ease of use of being able to log somebody into the workstation really affects the flow of people and traffic through the speaker ready room. And I think that could be partly why, we can do it. I mean, it's busy in there the whole time, but I think you can also trim down the amount of workstations that you have. Do you find that to be true?
That's a good question. I'll be curious, since this coming year will be our second year doing it, to see if we find that we can decrease the number of stations, or if we just want to keep running with what we have. I was like, but having everything just so much faster really made us a lot more efficient in churning people through. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know yet.
Okay.
So Ian, if I could add to what Becky said to that, I would say that, I would caution someone. The system being easy is a definite scenario, as we've already described, but I would caution, reducing your number to too low, simply because as we mentioned before, it's all about, providing good customer service. And these folks, when they come to the ready room, they want to be helped, and they don't want to be turned away. And the last thing that we want, as a group, is to tell them, sorry, all the stations are full. Could you come back when we're less busy, or anything of that nature? Our goal is as much as possible is to help them. And I would say that, one idea that I have seen work well is not only set up, a certain number of stations based on what you think would be the best amount. And of course, like Becky said, she's got kind of a rule based on what happened this year. She'll kind of base that on what she does next year. But the other thing that we've seen done and work well is, and this also takes into account, you've got to have a ready room that's large enough to do this. And that also can be a challenge. We understand that. But what I was going to say is, we set up in certain scenarios the tables around the room with the computers that people would use. But we also, if the room is there for it, we do rounds. And the rounds can be utilized with power for that. And then people can sit down with their own laptop and work. Because what you want to try and avoid as much as possible, I think, is for this to be inefficient, especially for a meeting the size of Becky's. You don't want folks to sit down and camp out. And those, you've got those folks that want to open up a presentation. They want to test it. They want to work on it. They want to change it. You can really, cause a bind in the room if you allow for that. So what I would say is, if you want to create space for them to work on their own laptops in that room, that's not a bad idea. Because, in our world, at least, the ready room, once it's open, it's always open, right? And so it's there for them to use and relax. It's usually not very noisy in there, so they can kind of take their time. So again, I would say that you want to have enough stations to where you're not having to make people wait, but maybe creating some space where they can work on their own laptops so that they can free up a computer and then come back to it when they're finally ready to upload that greatest version that the latest and greatest version. So
that's a great suggestion, James. So next I want to kind of do a little rapid fire of different questions that I come across all the time talking to a lot of different clients that are doing this. And I guess first the upload slides task. So obviously for those of you that aren't super Cadmium knowledgeable, there is a task that is upload your presentation slides, and that's what feeds the Speaker Ready system. So with that upload slides task, as we've talked about, the old system, we had to shut it down like a week or two prior, download that information, ship that server on site or whatnot. Now, theoretically, we can leave that task open. I know what I tell my people, but I want to hear your opinions on what you guys do, and then we'll talk about some of the alternatives. James, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, sure. Well, in full transparency, up to this point, since I've been using the new SRS with my customers, we have not yet decided. I've met with the customers about the opportunity to leave that open and keep it there, but we have not as of this point. They're sometimes it's a scenario where it's old habits are hard to break, I think, and they want to make certain that everything is up to date as possible. So we have left it to the normal scenario of closing that just before the ready room would be open for those that would come into the room. And I do know that I do want to get to a point, I think, because I think there's a lot of value in the ability to have that open, because there are many times I've had in the past, before this was even an opportunity to be done, people say to me, I can't just go into the harvester and upload still. Why can't I just do that? I have to come to the ready room. And so I think having that ability to do that is a plus, because again, folks are attending these sessions at a conference. Then they're seeing something that makes them either spurs an idea or they see something that they have in their slides that they don't agree with. And they go, I've got to go change that. And they want the ability to change that and quickly. And if they don't have to go back to the ready room, if they can do that from their hotel room, they love that. So I think that is something that's a big positive of the new system. And so I would encourage that is something that we should, look to try and do for future. So I'll let Becky speak to whatever she thinks.
Yeah, sure. So we tried to leave it open for our meeting after the meeting started. And what we found was, for the bandwidth that we had at the convention center, it was not enough. It just made downloading the presentations that were uploaded directly into Harvester, it was slow. And so it was a struggle. So we ended up making the decision on site to go ahead and close the upload task and force everybody else to come to the upload room. We're planning this year because we're going to have similar bandwidth at this year, because budgets are a real thing, and we are planning on keeping the task open up until the point that we travel, and then once my team hits the road, that task is going to close, and everything from there on out will just be in the upload room on site only. Was like one of the pieces that we wanted to keep it open for, just because I have a feeling that there's a bunch of you out there who may run into a similar thing, is that we have some members and some presenters who, because of their company's policies, can't use USB drives. So it was going to be easy we thought, to leave that task open. So for those individuals in particular, let alone others, to upload directly from their laptops. So we're going to have to do some extra messaging from my team's end for those individuals in particular this year, just to make sure they know that if they want to be able to upload from their own laptop and work around that USB issue, they're really going to have to do it a few days before the meeting and not wait till the 11th hour.
Exactly. Yes. I'm kind of the older school James perspective on this. I think once Speaker Ready Room is open, then people need to come in and get that service of the Speaker Ready. Will I have a wireless mic? Will I have my presenter view? Will I have, all the questions that a speaker wants to know? I want them to come in and get that service versus go into the room and being lost trying to figure that information out for themselves. Especially when you're in a situation where you may have a laptop at the lectern and there's not a technician in the room doing everything for them. That situation, I think, lends to more them coming in and getting the information before they get to the room. Which also brings up, I know you mentioned it earlier, James, but the demo stations. I find the demo stations to be very helpful in the speaker ready room. Not every client does it or sees the value there, but I do like it when a speaker's asking me, well, what's it going to look like in the room? Will I have my notes? Will I have this? We can immediately walk them over to just literally it's a 55-inch on a wall with a podium with a laptop on it to show them this is how you fire your presentation off. This is what it's going to look like in your room. And then that gives them an opportunity to see it, touch it, feel it before they get there. Do you find that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done this, since day one of offering the system. I mean, even prior to the new SRS, and we just continued it with the SRS because, the level of success we've had, and to make it even simpler and less and more cost effective, we do it with a laptop and a 24-inch monitor. And it's that simple. And at the end of the day, what we're telling the presenter is the laptop is exactly what you will have at the podium, exactly on this screen. And the 24-inch monitor, represents the screen in the room. That also allows them, because you all know, everybody's super concerned about presenter view. Am I going to have presenter view? And of course, this shows them, this is how it's going to open. It opens up presenter view on the computer, and of course, full slides over on the 24, which gives them the confidence of when they get to the room that they're going to have that as well. And, the other thing is we've already kind of established the quickness of the sync. Once the file is saved by the presenter, it's syncing out to the room, but it's also syncing over to that demo station that I've got established. So by the time I walk an individual, or one of my techs walks an individual over to that demo station, the good news is they're going to see that exact file that they just uploaded as well, which also gives more confidence to them. Look, it got here. It's going to get to the room. I can feel confident that it works. All those videos that I just saved, they're playing. I can hear them. I can see them. That's a big, huge thing. The demo station when we do it, we set it up in a way that allows for that station to show all rooms that are going on in any given day. So they, it's not just, we're not just giving them a random demo of somebody's talk. They can literally see their, presentation, which is a big piece. And, what we typically like to do, and in most cases, it's one demo station. Larger events, I have done two, and the real reason I'm doing two demo stations is simply because, again, I'm trying to not make it to where people aren't having to wait. I have had scenarios where there's a lot of folks there at the same time, but look, the good news is that we can gather around that demo, and I can show multiple people how it works, at the same time, which is also a big savings. The other thing that we like to do with that demo station is not only have the computer, the mouse, everything that we're going to have for them in the room. If there is a wireless advancer that's going to be there, we'll have one of those sitting there so they have the confidence of what that's going to look like. If there's a laser pointer, anything that we're doing, we talk about mics, podium mic, wireless lavs, whatever the case may be in that scenario, we go through all of that. So again, the goal is that they're going to the room, focusing on their talk and not worrying about the tech. And so that's the real reason that we like to do that. And I think it's been a success for us.
I couldn't agree more, James. I couldn't agree more on that. I have something that I am going to bring up to both of you, and I don't know how applicable this is, but Becky, do you publish the slides that we collect in Speaker Ready Room up on the website and mobile app?
We don't. We have a lot of speakers who have proprietary data in their slides that it's just not available to share publicly. So we do not. If you don't see it in the session room when it happens, you don't see it at all.
Okay. James, do you come across this at all?
Do we? Yeah. I'm sorry, you're referring to
publishing the slides we collect in Speaker Ready up on the website or the mobile app.
We do have a couple of the customers that utilize the Cadmium app, and of course, if they're utilizing the app through Cadmium, it's a simple scenario. But I have had more than not had situations with customers who use a different app provider, and they do have a scenario where they're making handouts available, and in some cases, not only are they making them available, they're making them available before the session starts, which can be a bit of a challenge. We have ways around that, and this is kind of separate again from the Cadmium solution. But what we've done in those instances is, again, we have the newest versions of the files, and we can, if need be, upload those to some other location. Most of the times when there's somebody that has a different app developer, they've got somebody on their team dedicated to getting those files either, ripped to PDF or whatever the scenario is to be made available as a handout. And what we've done in certain cases is we've synced those files to Dropbox. And that, again, is a quick scenario. Becky said this earlier. That also kind of ties into the amount of bandwidth you've got in the room. That can make a difference. We have to discuss those, in advance of the event. But we do have ways around that. It works out best, in my mind, if you're going to do that, not use the Cadmium app, it's best to have that team member be on site as opposed to out, remote. When they're remote, it makes it a little bit more of a challenge. However, we've overcome that, with the use of cloud-based apps like Dropbox, to get those files synced out to. So.
Yeah, one thing that I've suggested here lately, and I think I have a couple of people trying, and I don't know if this is going to work with you, Becky, but they have 2 upload tasks. One is to upload for publication publicly, and they know that this is going to be shared publicly. And then they have the one that they're going to present. Because what I'm seeing sometimes is if they submit one and they're doing the publishing from it, and they have something that they don't want to share publicly, then it makes them want to come back and change it or do whatever. So I think I'm finding several clients that like that opportunity to submit something that's shared on the website, but then have the version that you're going to present in the speaker ready room. And I think that that's gaining steam here from what I'm seeing.
I'll be honest, Ian, that sounds like mass chaos to me.
It could be. It could very well be. But just as an idea that popped in my head and kind of off topic. I have a question here from somebody, and I'm going to read it. Our presenters are showing an interest in including videos in their presentations, which can exceed the data limit on the upload task, which I believe is 2 gigabytes. What's the best way to accommodate these larger files? James?
Yeah, it's always fun when you see those 4 gigabyte PowerPoint presentations. You wonder how they don't just crash to begin with. But no, that is a very common, scenario, and it all comes down to, the days of having to trail videos with a file are gone, thankfully, because that was a nightmare in and of itself. Nowadays, videos themselves are embedded within the file, which also, though, of course, increases the size of that PowerPoint. When you run into that file size limitation, generally what needs to occur, the best way to occur, is to have them bring that to us on a drive. Now, Becky said this earlier, it's getting to, use of thumb drives is going by the wayside. It doesn't matter whether it's a medical meeting or an educational related meeting. Folks are not allowed to use thumb drives anymore because of security concerns. And so my best recommendation is to use the cloud. Whether it be Dropbox or any other the multiple options out there. If you can put it to the, in the cloud that way, we can then download the file into the ready room and upload it into the system and overcome that scenario. We also, on all of our events, we always have, bandwidth available in the ready room. So if, push come to shove, if the file existed on the presenter's laptop, again, I can make available a location for them to upload that file to, and then still get it in time. That, of course, that all plays into how much time are they giving us, to get that file ready to go to the room. If they're literally walking in with 5 minutes to spare, that could be a bit of a challenge. But if they're following the rules of the stuff that Becky has sent out that tells them, please show up to the ready room at least 24 hours in advance if possible, we can usually overcome just about any hurdle that happens, including, large file sizes.
I agree. And there isn't as a follow-up to this answer, I guess, from this attendee, that 2 gig limit is only on the pre-submission upload. There isn't a limit within what they submit in Speaker Ready. So
that's correct.
That is only in the pre-uploads, just so that they're aware of that now. And with that, I guess I'm going to kind of come to a close and then invite Amanda back with some more questions from our audience. I want to thank both of you for being here today. You guys have been amazing. And I hope there's lots of questions that Amanda has for us, because I want to make sure that everybody leaves with a little something today that they can take home and put into practice. So Amanda, if you would come back, and then I'm going to look and see if I have another question in the time being, but why don't you go ahead?
All right, great. One of the questions I have is, we have to have speaker presentations 30 days in advance for CME purposes. Does having the speaker ready system lead to speakers not wanting to turn in presentations in advance once they know they can do it last minute?
If someone knows that they can wait till the last minute to upload, they're gonna wait to the last minute to upload. So offhand, I would recommend making it a non-negotiable. Like all of your messaging is that there's that 30-day cutoff, and they are required to upload by that point in order to participate in your program. And then after that deadline's done, as you get closer to the meeting, you can let them know they have the ability on site to go view their presentation and make last-minute changes. But if you let them know in advance that they've got wiggle room, they will take all of it.
Yep. And probably if I were a speaker, I might do the same. So I would say guilty, but I like that you make it non-negotiable. That's
I agree with Becky on that. It's because me in the room, I'm doing my best to provide customer service, and I don't like to say no. But if I've got a strong customer that is saying no and telling the presenters what they need to do and understand, then it makes my job easier, because as Becky said, they're gonna see, they're going to see how far they can stretch it as much as you allow them to. So it's really about just making good communication and clear to them that this has got to be done this way. And it's kind of a non-negotiable scenario. So.
Okay, well then, James, if you don't mind following up with that, I know we talked about, internet. Obviously, internet's a big expense for a speaker ready system. Can you talk about how we design these networks to take kind of the bulk purchasing buying power at these places to make it more affordable?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And I just realized my camera has frozen. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can make myself.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start to answer my own question then for a little bit. Pretty much at most facilities, the best. Go ahead, James.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. I'm back.
Good.
Okay, so yeah, the network, is expensive depending on the facility that you're in. You've all heard the term smart city if you're meeting planners. I know you have. Now, the one thing about smart city is they're not the cheapest in the business, of course. However, they are consistent pricing wise pretty much across their facilities. So if you are in that type of a property with smart city handling the network, you kind of know and you can budget going in what you're going to be looking to spend. What I recommend to all of my customers is to come to me as early as possible so that we can begin negotiating your event in as early in advance as possible. We have the knowledge, and we also have the experience of having worked in pretty much every facility in the United States that you can imagine, and understand what you're going to be dealing with there when you come in, when you talk about pricing. Now, of course, every facility, and it's not uncommon that percentage wise every year they're going to raise their prices potentially. The main thing that I would say in regard to that network is you want to use it to its full capability. And what I mean by that is when we order a network for Speaker Ready, we're going to order, first of all, bandwidth, the internet, right? That internet is what we're going to need in the room for anyone that needs to download a presentation. It's also going to be used in the breakout rooms potentially. And the way that that's done is we order a separate VLAN. That VLAN allows for us to push presentations out to the individual breakout rooms, but it also allows us to take that one internet drop and send it out over to, over the net, over that VLAN out, so that individual presenters can have internet in the room should they need it to either show a website, do polling, any of the number of things that you have out there. If your event, though, does presentation management, and let's say that it also does recordings, let's say that you also do digital signage, let's say that you also do overflow on demand. The good news is we can utilize and make that same network available to manage all of those tasks. Then you're talking more about a value add in the way that network is run. The main thing I think I should stress is that it's a good idea to reach out to your partner, because they should know the network scenarios in all these facilities, and they should be able to work on your behalf. The main thing that I think it needs to be understood, and most of my customers say, James, we don't understand it well enough to deal with this. We want you to manage it for us. And I'm happy to jump into a call with a customer and that entity on the other end. The main thing we're doing there is we're ordering what's needed and only what's needed. You're not wasting money on unnecessary, bandwidth here. The days of, as we all know, we're dealing with situations these days where presenters need to be zoomed in, for example, into a room. That's why bandwidth coming across that network is valuable. You're not literally paying for a separate internet drop in that room to manage that Zoom. And so there's some cost savings to be involved. So that network although that you do have to budget and plan for it, it can be utilized to your advantage when done properly.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. I know I have started asking clients to let me look at their, network order. And I can almost always find ways of saving and working with the AV folks for their requirements, and then other requirements. They're all separate requirements when Becky receives them, and they just kind of give them to the provider. And I think somebody kind of coming in and looking over the whole plan like you do is valuable for people like Becky. And that's where they see the value in what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are cases as well, beyond the Speaker Ready and all the other tools that I mentioned. We have had scenarios where we manage an entire meetings network. That is something that can be done if you decide to make that happen. With the use of a router, you're segmenting off components of your network. You've got a network for Speaker Ready, and you've got a network, say, for registration or staff office or whatever other components of that. So again, it's always a good idea to kind of have an overall look at your overall meeting and look at what components you need. And again, we not only with the Speaker Ready network component of this, we can assist you with what you need, whether it be for wireless, whether it be for staff office or whatever, other components of your event. We look at it as an overall picture to make sure we're giving you the greatest value, available for your network. So
I'll just add
go ahead.
that's huge. That's huge from an event management standpoint. And I'm sure Becky agrees, taking all of the different vendor contracts and orders and things like that. I mean, even under one roof, it's multiple services for an exhibitor service center. It can be so overwhelming. So having that extra eye, valuable is what you said, Ian. I would say it's like valuable times 10. Were you going to ask another question, Ian, or would you like for me to provide an audience question?
Provide an audience question, please.
All right. I like this one. Okay. If you could communicate only one thing to your speakers up front to reduce stress, what would it be?
Don't wait to the last minute. Seriously, don't wait to the last minute. That's where all of the stress occurs. That's where there's more margin for error, is the waiting until the last minute. So even just 24 hours in advance, a week in advance, 30 days in advance, sure. But just in advance, don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, and I would agree with Becky. Obviously, that's a big, that would do a lot for a lot of folks. The other thing I would say is, as difficult as it is for everybody to not want to read any more emails, if Becky sends you an email or your meeting planner sends you an email, there's something that they need you to understand. And I would say that, read the emails, because there's most of the time the information is there. If the question you have is there to be answered, it's just a matter of you taking the time to read it. And then, of course, I would say that, since we're talking about Speaker Ready and we're talking about speaker management, come to the Ready Room, because, the folks in that room are not only going to be able to help you with your talk and do all the things we've discussed today. We have intricate knowledge of everything that's happening at the event, whether it be an evening event or anything else that's going on. We can help you. We can be that, event guide to you and get you where you need to be. Not to mention the fact that we are all going to have intricate knowledge of the building or hotels potentially surrounding. And, we can help navigate you to wherever you need to go. So there's a lot of benefit in coming to that room, even more so than just, uploading a presentation.
Very good points. All right, let's move on to one more question. I think we have enough time for one, maybe two. So if anyone has an additional question they want to pop in before we end, please do. And we can always follow up after the webinar and answer your question. We're happy to do that. All right, so we kind of covered this already, but I'll ask it again because I remember being blown away by this. For organizations with lean staff, what's a realistic way to run a speaker ready room?
So I really think that our volunteer model works. It alleviates the pressure off of my team and our AV team, our Cadmium partners on site, by having volunteers that we can train in the moment. It doesn't take very long to get them up to speed, and they run the majority of what's happening. We just have some general oversight from paid staff in the room. So that would be my recommendation. Feel free to contact me if you want details on how we manage that program. I'm happy to share, but we've found that to be really successful for our team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great idea. And, as we've kind of discussed here today, the ease of use of the system allows for you to use volunteers because they can easily be shown how the system works and be taught very quickly. Everyone has a phone now. And, one of the things, I don't think we've kind of touched on this, but the great news is with this new system, you can literally open up a browser on your phone and you can pull up a web page. And all you're needing to do at that point is ask a presenter what their name is. With their name, you're then able to locate their session, locate their file, and then get them onto a computer and upload their talk. So I think that's a great part of this. The other thing I would say though, it's still going to be important to have, your AV partner have someone in the room there for technical needs. It could be anything, but you need to have somebody there that can deal with anything technical should it occur. The internet goes out or the VLAN stops working, any of those things. The other thing that I would mention is, and the volunteers can have this knowledge as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a technician, but there are going to be scenarios where presenters are going to come in and need PowerPoint help or whatever the product that they're using, and having that knowledge and understanding how those work is a big plus because, they need to understand. And again, you don't want to make them nervous. And if you're not understanding how to make something work, that's going to cause that nervousness that we've kind of talked about eliminating. And of course, the other thing I'll say is there's so many things, especially in the educational meetings that we run, people want to be creative. They want to be different. And the uses of polling, the uses of other products other than PowerPoint are very prevalent, and we need to be able to help them and understand that technology. So I think, a mixture of folks that are there, support staff like Becky mentioned, but also, some folks with technical knowledge is also important to have in the room if possible.
Very good points for sure. James, thank you so much. And thank each of you, Becky, Ian, and James, for your time today, for your expertise, and for sharing with us how you have successfully used the Speaker Ready system. I know I've seen it in motion, and I find it absolutely astonishing. I love it. And Becky, for what you do for your event, the number of sessions, the number of speakers, the number of volunteers, I'm just in awe. Thank you so much for bringing your perspective and your insights today. And again, thank each of you. I really, really appreciate it. I know we all do. On behalf of Cadmium, we appreciate your time and wish you success in your upcoming events. Have a wonderful day.